Welcome. That's three welcomes to the Rob Black Show. I'm your host, Rob Black, and how is everybody doing on this Tuesday? I would say a special Tuesday, but I don't know if there's anything real special about it, except it is the last day of September. Hell yes, it is the last day of September here, the 30th of Tuesday, and it's 11 a.m. and it starts the playoffs of baseball. Yeah, baby. Playoffs of baseball. Kansas City, first time in like 25 years. I think it's 25 or 22 or 23. It's definitely 20 to 25. How's that? And it's funny because I remember Kansas City being in the playoffs when they had George Brett and Brett Saberhagen. I remember that era. So yeah, 25 years ago or 20 years ago. It's got to be 25 because I was really young then. I definitely was young, and I just remember a play that George Brett made where he went for a foul ball and slid and caught it, and while he was sliding, went into the dugout. So he just like slid from the infield, caught the ball, and then slid right in the goddamn dugout and landed on his ass on the cement floor. So I remember that. I definitely remember that. And so Kansas City is back in the playoffs. So the wild card game is starting tonight. I said this yesterday. It's weird that you don't see the Yankees. You don't see Boston. You're not seeing the normal suspects that are in the playoffs. You got the Pittsburgh Pirates. I remember it wasn't too long ago when the Pittsburgh Pirates were just beyond horrible. Now all of a sudden they're in the playoffs, and I think they made the playoffs last year. I don't follow baseball as much as I should. I don't know why. I think baseball for me is a in and out style sport. There's periods of time when I would watch baseball religiously, and I think it has to do with what's going on in my life, and if I'm leading a slow, lazy life. When I'm leading a slow, lazy life, I think I like a slow, lazy game. And baseball definitely fits into that classification. Because when I watch baseball now, I want to rip my hair out. Like, it's so long and so boring. I can't fathom the time that I would literally watch a 3.5 hour, 4 hour game. But there was. I remember when I was younger, I'd watch the Yankees because they were on every, baseball is basically every day. And in Rochester, New York, they were on the Madison Square Garden network, so you had a game basically every night. And this was back when there was Don Mattingly, Dave Winfield, Ricky Henderson, Willie Randolph, Dave Righetti, Mike Bagley-Rulo. Who else? I'm trying to think. Ron Guidry, Phil Niekro, Joe Niekro, Ed Whitson. So when the Yankees were good as far as offense, but they had the worst pitchers in the world, or I should say they had great pitchers who were just about 15 years past their prime. So I remember that. And then I remember going to the World Series against Arizona which was many years ago, but not too long ago. So it goes through periods of time with baseball for me. I think this is one of those times where baseball is definitely not on my radar, because I was surprised when I was finding out who is in the playoffs. But regardless, tonight is the first game of the playoffs wild card, so make sure you guys watch it. Check your local listings for the channel that it is appearing on. So, what do we have going on? Yesterday, we talked about beheadings. It seems like there's a beheading every other day, or something involving terrorism, or something involving some crazy U.S. citizen that's just acting a fool. It's just never ending. Well, we've got a new story that's dominating the headlines. Yesterday we talked about the UN and Big Ben, the Knicks, talking to the delegate. And we said we were going to jump into that. But a story that came out yesterday that is now taken precedent over our show and a ton of other shows that are out in the media right now, whether it's TV or it's radio or it's newspaper, and that's these security breaches with the Secret Service. And this is not the first time the Secret Service is coming under fire for being pretty lackadaisical with their protocols and with what they are supposed to be doing, which is protecting the president. Now, I know there's people who despise the president and would love to see him gone. And as horrific as that is, trust me, there are many Republicans and many citizens that would just assume this president be gone in any way that can be achieved. This president has gotten more death threats than any other president in the history of our nation. That's a fact. It's something like 5 to 1 as far as other presidents. This president has never had more dissent with his own members of Congress than any other president in modern history. So when you hear of security breaches that involve the people that are supposed to protect the president, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, this should be alarming because you might not like the president, but eventually there will be a president that you like, and one would have to imagine you would not like to see your favorite president put in dangerous situations. And now, unless this is a mass conspiracy to make the president vulnerable by some secret Illuminati somewhere, and this is the way to get rid of him, then I guess it's all good, and people don't have to worry about their favorite president coming under fire from the Secret Service, because this is only happening because it's Obama. But if you don't prescribe to conspiracy theories, Illuminatis, or any of that other hocus pocus stuff, then you have to prescribe to the fact that our Secret Service are just as incompetent as police officers these days. And when we give the government all of this credit for being the all-powerful, all-knowing institution that spies on everybody and knows everything that everyone's doing and plan assassinations on people within their own government and all of these things that we've all been led to believe, on top of secret aliens hidden in Arizona, you have to then say, nah, this is just building somebody's street cred up, and when push comes to shove, that person is the biggest pansy in the world, because this Secret Service has got to be the most incompetent group of people that I've ever heard of. And again, unless you are prescribing to conspiracy theories, there's no other way to explain what transpired. And now all of these instances of incompetency that are going on, that are being leaked by whistleblowers. So let me refresh your all's memory. Last week there was a fence jumper, and basically we get fence. Well, I say we, like I'm part of the White House. The White House gets fence jumpers. I should say regularly, but every so throughout the year, there's some crazy that jumps the fence, and they want to run on the White House lawn for whatever reason. Kind of like somebody jumping the guardrail at the Niagara Falls. And the notion that somebody made it to the White House steps and got tackled, beat down, was something that was a little alarming that they would get that far. But hey, maybe they were fast. They were like Jesse Owens running to the front door of the White House. Regardless, people kind of brushed it off and said, those things happen, but they didn't make it past the first real security wave and get into the White House. Ultimately, they were stopped as they touched the steps. Well, we were told now by a journalist with the Washington Post who did a story on Omar Gonzalez, and that is the individual who stormed the White House by jumping over the fence. A whistleblower inside the Secret Service called up the reporter at the Washington Post who did this really detailed, long piece about the circumstances surrounding Omar Gonzalez and exactly what really happened and what is being kept from the American people as far as how secure and how safe is our president and the White House. And let me tell you guys something. If you think that it was a big deal to have the World Trade Center have two planes fly into it and have images of what is really our financial institution beamed out to the world on fire and eventually toppled, and what that did for terrorists and people that want to harm our country. If you think that was a strong symbol and something that was incredibly disturbing, try imagining somebody running into the White House and blowing themselves up and taking out members of the first family, taking out staff. You can't fathom what it could mean to have a suicide bomber blow themselves up inside the White House. You want to talk about a state of panic like we've never seen? That would be it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we found out this Omar Gonzalez, who jumped the fence and had a knife and ran to the White House and got tackled before he made it any further than steps, is not true. What we found out was that Omar Gonzalez not only made it to the steps, and then he made it past one of the Secret Service agents. He then got into the front door, which was unlocked, which is pretty perplexing considering I don't know too many people just in their normal lives that leave their front doors unlocked. I mean, we're not living in 1951 in Wichita, Kansas, where everybody leaves their front doors open and their screen porch doors ajar, so the family dog could go in and out at its leisure. This is 2014. We're talking about the White House, and the front door is unlocked. It's unlocked. And I even think there's a sign outside that says, "Come on in. Don't worry." So Omar Gonzalez makes it past the Secret Service guard, goes into the front door, which is unlocked, and now once he's inside, this is even more disturbing. He starts sprinting through the White House to the point where he even passes the upstairs staircase that leads to the president's private quarters, where the first family lives. So while he's in the White House with a knife, running around like a lunatic, he's gotten so far that he's basically one turn away at going up to the private residence. And up in the private residence, ladies and gentlemen, there's not 10 or 20 security officers. It's the private residence. That's where our president is supposed to have privacy. That's where his children are supposed to have privacy. They're not supposed to walk out of a bathroom and walk down the hall in their PJs and there's security guards everywhere. So if Omar Gonzalez would have made it up them steps, who knows what would have happened? Who knows what would have happened? So Omar Gonzalez goes past the steps that lead up to the private residence and winds up in the East Room. Okay? He basically made it halfway across the first floor and into the East Room, where he is finally tackled and subdued and arrested. Not shot, not fucking stabbed, not blown up. I mean, literally, you could be an unarmed black teenager in Ferguson and get shot 10 times while you're running away from a police officer. You could be a 17-year-old black teenager in Florida who's got a pack of Skittles in your hand and get shot and killed at point blank range. But breaking into the White House with a knife, going through the first floor, past the residency of the president, first lady, and the first children, and you just get a fucking tackle like you're Walter Payton going through a defensive line. Perplexing to me. Just perplexing to me. And you got to understand something. When this gentleman, Omar Gonzalez, was in the first floor of the White House, the distance that he covered is about 168 feet. And to get to the East Room, he had to make turns and jumps. I mean, it wasn't just a straight shot. This is something that involved a left turn, a right turn. This is something that was a lot more detailed than just making your way to the front of the White House where they give tours that for, whatever it costs, if it costs anything. I've never even been to the White House. Whatever you have to go through to take a tour of the White House, that's not where this guy was. He wasn't in the general touring area. This guy was dangerously close to being in parts of the White House that nobody gets authorization to go to unless you are a member of the first family. Just the room that Omar Gonzalez was subdued in was the East Room, and that is where President Obama made the announcement of killing Osama bin Laden. Again, this is not making your way into the hallway where the tour guide tells you what pictures on the wall mean. This is making it into the deepest parts of the White House. Frightening. Think about it. If this guy was a suicide bomber, what would have happened? If this guy was the dreaded ISIS that Lindsey Graham says is on their way, or matter of fact, they're already here. They're already here in the United States, and they're getting ready to kill us all. Well, ladies and gentlemen, a ISIS suicide bomber strapped with C4 would have blown a decent portion of the White House up, would have took out a whole bunch of people, and we would be sitting here in a much more catastrophic state of security vulnerabilities than on 9/11 at the World Trade Center. Yes, the World Trade Center, it killed thousands of people. But let's face it, the symbolism of killing people with a suicide bomber who got into the White House on the steps of the steps that go to the private quarters of the president is a little bit more scary and a little bit more of a symbol that terrorists are winning and terrorists committed the ultimate attack on America. You can't get worse than bombing the White House. I mean, let's face it. Okay? And the other scary thing is this Omar Gonzalez and his tour of the White House with his knife and God knows what he was looking for had just missed the president and his kids. They left about 5 minutes before Omar Gonzalez stormed the White House. If there was a 5-minute shift, he would have encountered the President of the United States. President of the United States would have been walking down the stairs from the private residency, and he would have stumbled with his children on a lunatic former military soldier wielding a knife, looking to kill the first family, the president, and whoever he could find. Let's face it, that is troubling, it's frightening, and it's something that should never have happened. And we could go right to the beginning of this story and say, how did this guy, once he jumped the fence, not get spotted by the snipers that are on the roof of the White House? How did nobody let the dogs out? The White House and Secret Service have trained attack dogs. You know, them German Shepherd attack dogs. They have them at the White House, and they are trained to attack. They were not deployed. Once again, things like this you hear, and you say to yourself, well, maybe we give too much credit to our government with being this all-knowing, all-powerful entity that goes and assassinates presidents and conspires to blow up the World Trade Center, and yet you have a fence jumper with a knife running towards the White House, and it just slips by all of this genius government officials that are on top of basically running everything in the world. They are the all-knowing. Again, you either then have to prescribe to somebody working with inside a super secret classified government agency that is rogue and are trying to kill the president, or our government and the people that work in our government are just like the Ferguson police officers or that other police officer out there in whatever shit-kicking county it was that shoots the black motorist who's getting his license out of his car. I mean, the list goes on of ignorant, stupid police officers and government officials that we see on a daily basis fucking up. We then have to prescribe that people that are protecting our president and the first family and the White House are just as stupid as the big fat cop eating donuts out on Lancashire Boulevard here in Los Angeles, California. Think about that. A guy jumps the fence, starts running to the White House. No police dogs are unleashed. No sniper fire is unleashed. And again, this is coming from a government that supposedly has trained assassins that can kill presidents in moving cars in the middle of crowds in downtown Texas there. Again, it's perplexing. Because if you're going to say that our assassins that we used in killing JFK back in, what was it, Houston, Dallas, wherever the hell it was. The book Depository, CIA, Castro, Oswald. You got to imagine in 2014 that our trained assassins today are just, tenfold better than back 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. But yet, they couldn't even shoot Omar Gonzalez running from the fence of the street on the White House lawn to the front door. And the fact that he got through a Secret Service officer at the front door, and once he was in, dodged, weaved. Again, you either prescribe to our Secret Service and a special secret unit that is trying to get the president killed, trying to kill as Republicans and Tea Partiers and Christian fanatics call the Antichrist, or the government really is nothing more than incompetency at different levels. But they're still the same retards that work at the DMV. They're the same morons that work at the gas department. They're still the same morons that work at the electric power companies in Los Angeles that for 6 months figured out finally that they messed up everybody's billing. These must be the same morons that are all over state and local levels, but now they've just kind of graduated into the highest levels of the government. And so there's nothing special as far as super secretness with aliens and technology and all of these satellites that we have in the air that can see through houses and read what you're writing on a piece of paper in your bedroom in the middle of the night in the dark, and can listen like they're Batman to every whisper you say. Bullshit. They ain't doing that if they can't even stop Omar Gonzalez from running 168 feet inside the White House, past the president's home, steps that go to his private studies and bedrooms. It ain't happening. Okay? And the other scary element, this Omar Gonzalez in his car had over 850 rounds of ammunition, a machete, and 2 hatchets. That's what this guy had. 2 hatchets, machete, 800 rounds of ammunition. And that is who was running around in the White House that at first we were told made it to the front steps and then got tackled. Why this guy was not shot halfway to the front door. Why this guy was not eaten by a dog before he even got to the front door. Why, once he was in the White House and the guards seen somebody that was not supposed to be there with a knife, why was he not shot 10 times like Michael Brown out there in Ferguson, Missouri? How is it we have all these unarmed black men being shot dead by police officers, but Omar Gonzalez gets in the White House and he's having a goddamn party? This is troubling, it's perplexing, and it should bother every single one of you. Like I said, if you don't like the Democrats and you don't like Obama, because you're a Republican, eventually you're going to have a Republican. You're going to have a president you do like. And you don't want this happening. Remember, we expect there to be a level of danger when our president is out in public. And you see him working his way through a line of fans when he's out campaigning, or he's making an appearance, or when Obama's at Chipotle sticking his hands over the sneeze rail, pointing at stuff. Give me that, give me that, give me that. We expect that there could be a problem. We don't think something would happen because there are Secret Service agents and police officers and people that their job is to protect the president. But when a crazy nut like John Hinckley shoots at the president, which was Ronald Reagan, and strikes James Brady in the head and basically does the damage that he did, we expect that could happen. When that comes out, we don't become shocked like, how could that happen? We're shocked, but then the shock turns into, well, yeah, you have our president wandering around outside, waving to people. You have our president at Chipotle sticking his fingers at the food. He's going into steakhouses, steak sub stores. He's going into Starbucks. Sure. The tensions and expectations are extremely high for some nut job to do something. And when the president leaves these situations untouched, we collectively sigh and say, whew, thank God. We hate when he does that, but we know it's part of the job. So nothing happened. We got him back to the White House safely, and all is well. That is something that we all know could happen to our presidents. We all know that our first family, and especially the children, them being at school, could get into a fight, could get some crazy nut job to stalk them at their school. Again, we expect that type of craziness to happen. That's why we train our Secret Service and the police officers, the FBI agents, at such a level so that when things like that happen, they're stopped. We always have to expect the worst. Always. But when it comes to the White House and being inside the White House, nobody ever expects to hear anything involving radical crazies, radical Islamists, anything of that nature going anywhere near the White House. That is something that is completely off the table. You're talking about the White House. You're talking about not just where the president, our leader, lives, not just where the first family lives, not just where decisions that affect our way of life are made, but just take it as the symbol of our country. Our symbol. Everything that our country is right there on Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House. Nobody ever expects anything to ever penetrate that White House. I mean, we're told that there's basically an iron dome around that White House, similar to what Israel has, and the Israelis use to defend themselves from Hamas rockets. We're told that there's a shield around the White House, so any type of incoming missiles fired at it are stopped. From airplanes, missiles, rocks. But I don't even know if that's true now. How the hell could we fathom that a rocket, an airplane, or anything like that would be intercepted by any type of defense shield that we have when Omar Gonzalez is not even intercepted? And he makes it into the White House, 168 feet through the White House, past the residence of the first family stairs, going up to the bedrooms of the first daughters. That's frightening. And then on top of this, the whistleblower notified this reporter of another breach that none of us knew about. And the first family didn't know about it for days and days and days later. In 2011, what happened was a crazy nut job named Oscar R. Ortega Hernandez. My question is, what's up with these Mexicans going after the White House? I guess that stereotype that they say Mexicans and blacks hate each other, I guess really is true here. You got Omar Gonzalez going into the White House with knives. And in 2011, you got Oscar R. Ortega Hernandez. And what he did was parked his car a bunch of yards away from the White House and opened fire with an assault rifle onto the White House. Now, the Secret Service didn't respond to shots fired. When shots were fired, the head of the Secret Service detail there told the rest of the agents to stand down. It was nothing more than car backfire. Stand down. Don't worry. Even though some agents actually at one point smelled gunfire. Now, it wasn't until a couple days later that the Secret Service realized that the White House was fired upon. Not from any agents finding out, but the maid. Okay? One of the maids that were on the residence floor noticed that there was glass broken on one of the balconies. She reported it, which in turn got the Secret Service to investigate, and they found bullet holes. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, they found bullet holes. One bullet hole penetrated a window up in the residence of the White House. Yes, the same residence, and part of the balcony where anybody from the first family could have been hanging out, enjoying some air, maybe the president smoking a cigarette, and that is where one of the bullets that got fired struck a window right next to one of the balconies that people could have been out on. And a matter of fact, the president was not in town. He was in Australia. The first lady was gone, and the only two people that were there was one of the daughters and the mother-in-law. The other daughter was out with the mom. So basically, you had the mother-in-law and the daughter in a position where bullets were fired in a close proximity. And the Secret Service, when this happened, said, no, it wasn't bullets. It was car exhaust. Okay? Car exhaust. And what's even more troubling is when they eventually went and investigated and found Oscar Ortega Hernandez, they realized he was the same individual that they had stopped a couple times before. They actually had stopped this guy before. Actually, it was 2 other times. One time he was just wandering around the south side of the White House. At one point, they went into his car and he had knives. He had a map of the White House. I mean, it was obvious that this guy was a stalker. And yet, he was let go. He was let go. He was let go and wasn't tracked. The minute they got this guy the first time and questioned him, and they realized that there wasn't enough to arrest him, but there was definitely enough to put a red flag in his file and say, crazy whack job. Ladies and gentlemen, he should have been tailed. Why, once the Secret Service and police questioned him and realized that he was a little fucked up when he was stalking somebody and wandering on the south side of the White House, and he could possibly want to harm the president or the first family. Why, once he was questioned and all the authorities said, well, we can't arrest him for just having a knife or just having a map of the White House or for just being creepy and walking along the south side. There should have been a member of the security team that said, you're right, but we will put 3 or 4 agents to tail this individual on a regular basis for at least a month or 2 until we fully feel comfortable that he's really not up to doing something bad. That wasn't even done. I mean, literally, you have people in the United States that have you have mobsters, okay? You have mobsters that the government employs the FBI and other task forces to investigate, wiretap, surveil, and tail for periods of years because these mobsters are gambling, because these mobsters are loan sharking. I mean, these guys are doing things amongst themselves. They're gambling with people who want to gamble. They're loan sharking to people who need loans. They're doing everything to people that want this activity. Or people that are shady like them that are part of this world. And the federal government takes FBI agents and literally puts them in vans where they camp outside John Gotti's house, Paul Castellano's house. They come up with intricate ways to put wiretapping, eavesdropping devices in these people's houses. They disguise themselves as plumbers, cable repairmen, and they then conduct year-long surveillance operations. How is it that Oscar Ortega Hernandez is caught wandering the south side of the White House? He's questioned because he's got maps of the White House and he's got machetes and all sorts of other weaponry. And the police and the government officials go, well, we got to let him go. We're just going to let him go and think nothing of it ever again. Why would he not be tailed? Why would he not be under surveillance? Again, perplexing to me. Perplexing to me. To the point where this guy basically went out, got an assault rifle, got ammunition, posted up 100, 200, 300 yards away from the White House and fired like 8 to 10 shots right into the front of the White House, which could have killed anybody that was out on the balcony. How is this? How does this guy who was on the radar of the Secret Service and government officials who are supposed to protect our president, how is this guy able to just willy-nilly operate out in the general public, but a goddamn gangster in New York City can't go get a cup of coffee without a surveillance van up their ass for a year to two? Go read some books about the downfall of John Gotti and other crime families in New York. They've got surveillance on some of these guys for over a year. But you don't put surveillance on Oscar Ortega Hernandez? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you kidding me? Again, you either have to prescribe to a conspiracy that involves a rogue organization from within inside the government that wants President Obama to be assassinated. They want him dead, but they can't do it themselves. So the only way they can do this is lowering the security detail on him to an extent where any crazy can get to him and kill him and his family. You either have to prescribe to that, or we have to erase all the information that we've ever had planted in our brains that our government is so powerful. From Freemasons to Illuminatis, to aliens in aircraft hangars, to secret installations under the Denver airport, to chemicals that are being sprayed from airplanes that are poisoning us all and making us zombies. You have to throw out all of that and just say our goddamn government is incompetent. They're dumb. And the people they hire are dummies. Now, if you go back to 2011 and recall an incident that happened in Colombia, I tend to prescribe to the notion that our government and the people that are involved in our government are just dummies. And there is no best of the best when it comes to the Secret Service and the secret police that are involved with the FBI or with the CIA and things that you have to raise through the ranks and have special military training or college education. No. I think at the end of the day, all these people that work in all of these super classified secret roles are no different than the big fat cop that's out there in Los Angeles that's killing unarmed blacks, or the rogue New York cops that are choking black guys to death who are selling pirated DVDs. In 2011, you had 13 Secret Service members that their job was to make sure our president was safe in Colombia. Colombia. You're talking about an area where people get killed that work in the government on a regular basis from drug cartels. Colombia. They blow people up with car bombs. Colombia. Yes, Colombia. Well, we had actually 13 Secret Service agents that were there well, let's just say they were not protecting the president. They were out getting hookers, getting drunk, basically having a goddamn party. To the point where some hookers that they got, they weren't even paying them. So they were basically having sex with hookers, and then the hooker would say, okay, that's 50 pesos, or whatever the hell money is in Colombian the economy. And the Secret Service were going, fuck you, Guadalupe, I'm a Secret Service agent, and fuck off. So guess what happened? These hookers started to scream and yell. These hookers started to make waves. These hookers would not leave. Lo and behold, they made such a stink that you had an investigation go down because other Secret Service members who were not getting blowjobs and getting drunk got involved in Colombia and said, oh my God, this is not good. Literally. You had Secret Service agents who were supposed to protect the president in Colombia, where you have drug cartels blowing people up. You had these Secret Service agents getting drunk as fuck, staggering around, playing with their pricks, banging hookers, and this is all going on while they're supposed to be protecting the president and making sure that his entire stay for this summit is safe, secure, and that he comes back to the United States in one piece. This same Secret Service that's letting Omar Gonzalez run rickshaw through the White House with a knife, the same Secret Service that's letting Oscar R. Ortega Hernandez open fire on the White House and basically question him and then let him go as just basically being a non-threat. Since 2011, the Secret Service have been nothing more than a bunch of shitty cops from Ferguson, Missouri. Except they're not shooting the unarmed black man. They're letting other people shoot at the unarmed black man. But unfortunately, this unarmed black man is not just an 18-year-old kid who is mouthing off in the street, or a CD bootlegger, or somebody who's got a mental issue in Los Angeles. No. This unarmed black man happens to be the president of our United fucking States of America. And this Secret Service detail from 2011 are trying to have as many people kill our unarmed black man. Ladies and gentlemen, you should be disturbed by this. You should be troubled by this. And you should not stand for this. Because I will say it again. You might not like our black president, and you might not like the Democrats. But eventually there will be a white president, and there will be a Republican that you do like. And you do not want a Ortega or a Gonzalez running through the White House, shooting, stabbing your president or your first family. We do not, as a nation, want some ISIS soldier that the Republicans say are here now and plotting to kill all of us. Well, guess what? All of us seems to be a pretty big task. I would say, how about one of us? And that's the guy that lives on Pennsylvania Avenue. And he goes by the name of President of the United States. And if Ortega and Gonzalez can make it inside the residency, what's to stop an ISIS soldier strapped with C4 making his way into the front door, which is unlocked, and blowing himself up right there on the residence steps, just as the first family is walking down to leave and go to an event. We never thought that could ever happen. We never thought that that scenario could ever play out. But here we are, finding all of this information out. As we speak, you have the leader of the Secret Service speaking on Capitol Hill to some committee members about the breaches in security and telling everybody exactly what happened, how it happened, and the fact that it shouldn't have happened. And when you hear all of this, you now can actually say, yes, a Islamic fundamentalist could have actually strapped themselves with C4, made their way into the White House, and blew themselves up along with the president, first lady, and the first family. Something that a week ago we would have all laughed at and said, that could never happen. The snipers, dogs, Jedi force fields, you name it. How about just the goddamn lock at the front door? Would have prevented any of that to happen. You're insane. You're crazy. That could never happen here in the United States to our president at the White House. Well, guess what? We just found out that it can and that it did. And if this guy was strapped with a bomb, we would be having a hugely, hugely different debate. Something that could be catastrophic, something that could be life changing for this country, and something that would be seeing Joe Biden sworn in as the new president. Because 5 minutes sooner and a C4 bomb would have changed this country forever. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Rob Black Show. We're going to take a break right here, and when we come back, I'm going to discuss my favorite topic, and that's Republicans. And, more importantly, my favorite Republican, that being the Banester. Yeah, not Bane from Batman. Oh, Batman. No, I'm talking about Boehner, the orange-faced guy. Yes, the Speaker of the House, and his new comments regarding a vote, a war authorization. You know, something that he's supposed to do that the Constitution states it's the duty of Congress. It's the Rob Black Show, and when we come back from this commercial break, which is going to involve somebody with CP, okay? Let's donate to CP. Let's donate to Alan Thicke. Let's donate to getting him in the proper rehab that he needs. And let's donate to CP and causes that can fix people with CP so they can dance better and more healthy to Robin Thicke and Robin Thicke songs like Blurred Lines. So Rob Black Show, and we'll be right back after these words.
Everybody get up. If you can't hear what I'm trying to say, if you can't hear, feel the same way. Baby, I'm going down. Baby, I'm going down. Baby, I'm out of my mind. Okay, now he was close, tried to domesticate you, but you're an animal. Baby, it's in your nature. Just let me liberate you. You don't need no pills. That man is not your mirror. And that's why I'm gonna take you good girl. I know you want it. I know you want it. I know you want it. You're a good girl. Can't let it get past me. You're far from plastic. I keep blessed with these blurred lines. I know you want it. I know you want it. But you're a good girl. The way you grab me, must wanna get nasty. Go ahead, get at me. Come on, put your camera dreams on. Just get your dreams on. I know it's dreams on. You're the hottest bitch in this place. I feel so lucky. You wanna hug me? What rhymes with hug me? Okay, now he was close. Tried to domesticate you, but you're an animal. Baby, it's in your nature. Just let me liberate you. You don't need no pills. That man is not your mirror. And that's why I'm gonna take a good girl. I know you want it. I know you want it. I know you want it. You're a good girl. Can't let it get past me. You're far from plastic. Talking about getting plastic now. These blurred lines. I know you want. I hate them lines. I know you want. I hate them lines. I know you want. But you're a good girl. The way you drag me, that's why I get nasty. Go ahead, get lucky. One thing I ask you, let me know when you back that ass to yo. From Malibu to Perigo, yeah, bitch, she bad. You hit me up when you pass through. I do something big enough to tell your ass to. I back on them, you don't be very casual. It's almost out there, right? How you get out there without my voice out here? You pay me by open like your leg guy. He just swear for you. Expect that ass and pull your hair for you. So I can't wait. You just salute, but you didn't taste it. Not many women can refuse it. But I'm a nice guy, don't get how you did. Do it like it hurt, like it hurt. What you do like work? Hey, baby, can you breathe? I got this from Jamaica. It always works for me. The quarter to the beat. No more pretending, 'cause now you're winning. As I begin, I know it's falling on a good girl. I know you want it. I know you want it. I know you want it. You're a good girl. Can't let it pass me. You're far from plastic. Alright.